Hello, make it yourselfers and carnivores. Today, I want to talk a little bit about something that I've decided to try, which may sound a bit crazy to a lot of people. In fact, the few people I have told it to here, including my husband, think it's crazy. At least at first. Once I explain a little bit my rationale for choosing to do what I'm choosing to do, they're a little bit more on board. Those of you who have been following me, especially since my changes in diet, a lot of you know my blog as having a lot more paleo recipes, and there were a lot of recipes that were very high oxalate. I used a lot of nut flours and tapioca flour, and I was mostly gluten-free, low sugar generally. The healthier I was trying to be, the less I felt well. But of course, this was over many years. So at first, things were well and then not well. And out of desperation, almost 2 years ago, I tried the carnivore diet. This after eating mostly vegetables, a very clean diet. My diet was very clean. It was very high in vegetables. But I just was having a hard time even working anymore. I was having a hard time concentrating. I had lots of brain fog. When I first started the carnivore diet, I had a lot of energy, and I actually lost about 7 pounds. I started out at around 144 pounds, and I got down to about 138. And I was ecstatic. I was so high energy, feeling so well, and getting so much done, and I was losing weight, and I just felt like I looked good, I felt good, and I had found this miracle. But then a month into it, I crashed. I had major oxalate dumping. I had a major rash. After that point, I just started to feel a lot more tired again. I was feeling better than I was pre-carnivore. Things would go a lot better, and then I would go through these constant oxalate dumping cycles. But overall, I still was going through these weeks where I just felt amazing, and I did start to gain weight again. And over the last year or so, I have been cycling around 150 pounds. Of course, that is about 6 pounds more than when I started the carnivore diet. While that was not my focus for starting the carnivore diet, my main issue was just the fact that I just felt like I had so much brain fog. I was tired all the time. I couldn't get anything done. It bothered me. Ever since I was around 12 years old, I have always been very concentrated on my weight. I always felt a bit bigger than a lot of my friends, and that bothered me, especially because I have always been a lot more concerned about what I was eating. It's frustrating when you see people eating whatever they want and then just looking so good, and you feel like you're eating such a healthy diet and you're doing everything you're supposed to, and you just can't shake the weight. And honestly, over the last 40 years, I have always monitored what I was eating and just an attempt to not get really overweight. And the one time I wasn't super concentrated on how much I was eating was in pregnancy, but at that point I put on a ton of weight. And I got up to over 90 kilograms. I would have to look that up in pounds. Normally I weigh myself in pounds, but here, being in Spain, with the Spanish system, they were weighing me there, and I just never bothered to translate that over. I will say that through my pregnancy, I wasn't eating a lot of meat, and a lot of the meats that I liked, they were saying, not to eat the less cooked meats, not to use these cured meats. I loved jamón serrano, which is the cured ham that's like prosciutto here in Spain. And a lot of these things they were saying not to eat, and I ended up eating a lot of tangerines and strawberries, and I would make myself these shakes with strawberries and yogurt. When I would go to my maternity appointment, she's like, "Why are you putting so much weight? What are you eating?" And I'm like, "I'm seriously not eating that much." And I was eating a lot of just fruits, which of course is a lot of sugar. And of course I know that now, but at the time it just seemed very healthy and I felt like I was doing the best thing. So again, over the years, I have tried so many things. I was vegetarian for several years in college. That's when I was at my highest weight. But of course, I was also in the residence hall and I was eating what I could there, and a lot of it was just not the best choices. But again, I was very surprised once I started a healthier, more vegetarian type diet, eating lots of zucchini noodles and a lot of other stuff. The reason I'm giving you all of that background information is so that you can understand why I chose to do what I'm doing now. And I have decided the crazy thing of almost tripling, at least doubling the amount I eat every day in a final attempt to try to lose weight. And of course, that goes against what everybody thinks, and it sounds crazy. But again, I remember being 12 years old and I was trying to live off of sugar-free Jell-O and cans of soup, looking for the smallest amount of calories. I have always tried to keep my calorie intake low. And even though I don't really think about calories, I don't count calories, it's just in my mind what I think is high caloric, other than fats. And once I realized that fat isn't the enemy, I haven't been avoiding fats, but I feel like I still haven't been getting enough calories, even with the higher fat foods. One of the reasons that I have thought that, and I keep seeing this over and over, if you're not losing weight and you think you're eating well, you may be either eating too much or not enough. For me, I felt like I must be eating enough because before I started the carnivore diet, I was doing a ton of intermittent fasting. I would also do extended fasts. So yes, I have experimented a lot with a lot of different things. And my YouTube video about being on carnivore and not being able to lose weight, it was frustrating because I was getting so many comments like, oh, she must be eating lots of cream and dairy. And the thing is, well, I've experimented a lot. There were a lot of times I wasn't, and I haven't noticed a huge difference. I was basically staying around the same point no matter what I did. Lots of dairy, no dairy. But before I go further into that, I want to go back to when I lost finally my pregnancy weight. I put on a lot of weight, and then I spent several years where I took a lot of it off, but I had quite a bit still. And I was probably in the 160s, and I just kind of stayed there. I felt like I was watching what I was eating, but I just could not shake those pounds. I could not lose them. And so what I finally did is I was doing this intensive exercise program, and I was eating a ton of vegetables, but I was also throwing in a ton of intermittent fasting. And it worked well at first. It really did. And I took off these pounds that I just couldn't get off. And I was eating these big meals of zucchini noodles, and you'll see some of these zucchini noodle recipe posts on my blog. I would just have this big plate of zucchini noodles with maybe a few pieces of chicken breast with a pesto, homemade pesto sauce or something like that. So I had lots of fats in there, but I had very little protein, very little sustenance. And overall, it felt like this big meal, but it was not a lot of calories. And I think if I looked back, I lost a ton of weight, but I was also losing hair. And I didn't tell anybody about that at the time. And another thing that I had a few people say, is Tracy okay? She looks like she's sick or something like that. And I just thought, that it was jealous comments of the fact that I was losing weight. And I felt pretty okay. I didn't feel sick. I didn't feel bad. But when I got down, I lost a lot of weight. I was doing a lot of running. I was going up to the mountain and running about 5 kilometers, often several times a week. And I don't do running these days. In my mind, the only way for me to lose weight was to do lots of fasting and eat very little calories. And I think I've been doing that for so long. And while it did work for a while, it got to the point where it didn't work, and not even to maintain. So it was interesting that when I switched to carnivore, I actually lost weight because I was eating so much more. And looking back now, when I started carnivore, I was eating a lot, and I was eating several times a day. I was following all the advice. Eat as often as you want, eat as much as you want. The weight will come off, you're gonna feel great. So I did that. But then with the oxalate dumping, I think when that all started, I think things changed. And I don't know, maybe I was just so focused on trying to find out what to do with that. I think I started to curb what I was eating. I started trying to control things again. And I think maybe that has been my downfall. I think once I started controlling things, plus I had also seen certain videos like Steak and Butter Gal. She was, I believe, vegan and then went to a carnivore diet, and she gained maybe 20 plus pounds. I can't remember how much, the details, but she gained a lot of weight at the beginning because she was eating so much. And then about 6 months into the process, she felt better. So she started eating less and she started losing weight. So I think all of these things were in my head, and I was thinking, well, what I need to do is just to eat less and I can lose weight. And what that basically ended up translating into is that I started doing a lot of intermittent fasting again. Now, if I were hungry, I would, make myself either coffee with butter in it, or when I was trying to avoid coffee to be more strict, it might have just been a fatty latte where I was just whipping up the egg white and the yolk and butter into hot water, and it was actually quite good. Looking back on things, I basically only had one main meal, and it was a ribeye steak at night. And I would snack a little bit during the day. And I thought it was enough to be eating enough. It seemed like so much more than what I had been eating when I was eating these big plates of zucchini noodles, which I figure had nothing in them. So for me to be able to eat a big ribeye steak and then snack a little bit on a few anchovies or maybe an egg earlier in the day, I thought, wow, that's a lot, I would even make myself sometimes smoothies with a couple of eggs. So on one of these good days, I would have several eggs at lunchtime, and then I would have this big ribeye steak at night, big ribeye steak, and I felt like that was a lot. But when I actually started looking into it, this ribeye steak was 200 and something, maybe the bigger ones got into 300 and something grams, and a lot of these bigger ones were with bone. So basically, I was getting on average less than 300 grams of ribeye steak. So right there, depending on where you look and depending on how fatty it is or whatever, but we're talking maybe 600-800 calories. And again, I do not count calories, and a calorie is not a calorie. Depending on what that calorie is made up of, it can totally affect you in a different way. But I do think it is a good guideline to get an idea of if you are coming anywhere close to eating what you should be eating. So when I came to that realization, even if I had a couple of eggs and a few anchovies in the day, what was I getting? Maybe 1,000 calories a day on a good day? And my thought was, well, maybe that's just too much. And I was getting very frustrated. You see all these people on YouTube, and they're eating 2 ribeye steaks and bacon and all these other things, and there's so much trimmer than I am. And then of course you think, well, okay, you're 50, you're getting to those years when you're getting closer to perimenopause, although I show no perimenopause symptoms. And so I thought, well, maybe it's just, my metabolism. But again, what can fix your metabolism? So I decided to come to the crazy idea of eating basically double of what I was eating. Depending on the day, if I was eating 600 calories, I would need to at least triple that. So that's why I say doubling, tripling what I was eating, and focusing on not fasting. And one of the things that made me feel like this could be right for me was the fact that when we did go on our cruise this year, and I was eating 3 meals a day, and I was eating what I wanted, I was eating quite often, I only gained a pound, and I thought, eating more did not make me gain that much. But when I came home and I was sick and not feeling well and went back on diet, I actually ended up gaining 2 to 3 more pounds. So I'm going to give a bit of a spoiler alert. I started already. It wasn't me just saying, okay, I'm going to do this and recording and then like, okay, let's see what happens. I already started about a week and a half ago. And when I started, I was already up a bit because again, even when I went back to my diet after this cruise, I actually put on more than I did on the cruise itself, which is mind-boggling to me. And I weighed about 153 pounds. So what happened when I started to eat more? The first day, I wasn't hungry in the morning. I'm like, I'm not hungry. I'm used to eating my main meal at dinner. If I am hungry, I'll have a very small amount for breakfast or for lunch. So what did I do? I forced myself, basically forced myself to eat. I can't remember what I had on the first day or two because I wasn't prepared for what I was going to be doing, but I pushed myself. I think I was eating leftovers. We had gone out for dinner. We had some leftover steak and I put it in the air fryer and there was a lot of fat. So those first days, I put the fat in the air fryer and it got nice and crispy and I was eating a lot of that. I made myself eat lunch. I was making myself smoothies with the egg yolk, basically just egg yolks, a little bit of ice, a dash of cream, and just blending that up with a little tiny dash of vanilla extract, homemade vanilla extract, which of course is not carnivore, but I occasionally do incorporate some flavorings and spices like vanilla and a few herbs and spices here and there, especially when I'm making things for the whole family. Anyway, that first day, of course, I went up about half of a pound, or I think I was at 153.8 the next day. The next day, again, up to 154 something. The next day, about 155 something. And I can screenshot. I do have a log of my weight. So right now I'm going off memory, but I can show a screenshot of how this has been. And I started making myself a breakfast of what's called churrasco here in Spain. It's beef short ribs, I believe, in English. And people are just like, you're eating that for breakfast? And it's amazing. It gives me so much energy. I've just felt so good the last week, which got me to the point of starting to work on my treadmill again. And interestingly enough, after I went up to 155, the next day I was down to 153 something. I think 153.8. And then the next day I would go up to 154, but then I was back down to 153. And now I have been kind of cycling for the last week at about 153, 154. But what does that mean? I have not put on a lot of weight despite doubling what I'm eating. I am so much more active now. I just feel so good. I have so much more energy. Even my husband said, you go from like 0 to 100% in a week. Even though he thought the idea of increasing how much I was eating was crazy. And then, of course, I'm like, look, I'm not losing weight. He's like, yeah, but you're a lot more active. I'm like, but I feel like I have to be active. Doesn't that count for something? I wanted to be active before. I bought this treadmill desk and I was using it occasionally, but it was really hard for me to motivate myself to use it. And when I'm feeling better, I want to use it. And I have gotten through so many emails, at least getting rid of the junk. I haven't gone through a lot of the ones that I actually need to answer, but I'm getting a lot more done. I'm being more productive. I feel so much better. So what does that all mean? I don't know. I'm only a week or so into this. I weigh more than when I started, but I feel great. And I know I'm doing a lot of these different things. I'm doing a lot of things at once. It's like my husband's like, well, you can't judge if eating more is working because you're being more active. Well, but I'm being more active because I'm eating more, I think. I just feel better. Same thing happened when I started with like the Primal Queen supplements. It's like I started that and then I started incorporating a few oxalate things in, and I'm like, well, I don't know what it is, which one of these things it is. And but then I stopped the oxalate stuff, and I don't know. Can I judge if the supplements have been helping me? Well, they at least got me productive enough and in a frame of mind enough to come up with more ideas, because I've been stuck in this rut for like almost 2 years now. And I did feel more energy, and I did feel more energy before the cruise. And of course, all of these different things can contribute. I felt better on the cruise, and people will say, well, but you ate a lot more and you were eating a lot more different things. Yeah, okay, but I came home sick. So all these different factors, who knows? Who knows? I tell you how I'm feeling, the things I've done. I can't say exactly which one of the things has done the most. But all of these things bring me to this journey of what I'm doing. And for me, I feel like this is right for me at this moment. And you hear all of these different people, like Dr. Elizabeth Bright, who says that, especially for her book, Good Fats Are Good for Women Menopause, she gives you the visual idea of eating around a pound of meat and a stick of butter, which doesn't mean you have to eat a pound of meat and a stick of butter every day, but it's just to give you an idea. And I'm like, I'm not getting that pound of meat. My ribeye at 200, 300 grams is what? Half a pound? It's half a pound. I'm eating half of what I need to be. And a lot of times, yes, I would get some butter in, but I wasn't getting anywhere near the stick of butter. But there are other signs that I had that I might not have been getting in enough sustenance of some sort. And again, a lot of these people, and especially in my video when I talked about how I was not able to lose weight, they were also saying, well, you have to play more with adding more fat, getting less fat. I finally found my ratio. And I had tried all of those things. I had tried being more strict. I had tried more beef, less beef, more of a variety of meats, adding dairy in, not having dairy, adding fruit, not adding fruit. And none of those things seemed to change things much. But throughout it all, I was always eating more or less around the same amount. And this was very difficult for me to come to a decision to try to eat more. As somebody who has been watching what I've been eating since I was around 12 or 13, you can imagine that it's very difficult for me to say, okay, eat a bunch more, double what you're eating. It sounds crazy. And of course, my fear of gaining weight and gaining lots of weight, and then since I couldn't take this weight off, what if I can't take that weight off? It's real. It's a real fear in my head, but it just finally seemed to click. There were just too many signs that I was not eating enough. My fingernails, I have never been able to grow them out. They are brittle, they peel and crack, especially when I get towards my period. At the end of my cycle, I don't know why, but they peel more than they do during the rest of the cycle. And sometimes I can start to grow them in the week immediately following my period a little bit. They feel a little bit stronger, and then all of a sudden they feel weaker and they start to peel. I'm not sure why my cycle affects my nails so much, but it does. Other things that I notice is I hadn't had the same energy that I had when I first started carnivore. I just lacked that energy. And although I have more mental focus than I did when I had this major brain fog with the oxalate dumping, I just didn't have the energy to do what I wanted to do and to concentrate on my work and just some of the other stuff that I enjoy doing. I just didn't enjoy it because I was too tired. Of course, if you start to get more calories, even if you're getting more protein in and more fat, like you are on a carnivore diet, if you're not getting enough and your body just doesn't have enough energy, it's not going to focus on things like hair and nails. And while I have not been losing hair like I did when I was eating those big plates of zucchini noodles, I don't feel like it's growing like it used to. When I was younger, in the 80s, when everybody was getting perms, I remember I got a spiral perm, and my hairdresser said, "Your hair is so thick, you have so much hair." It's like, I think this was the record number of curlers I've had to put in. And my hair is just not that thick these days. I don't have issues with hair loss. I don't have like major problems with my hair. But again, I cannot grow my nails out at all. So these are issues that I noticed that I think could have to do with just not getting in enough nutrients. The other issue is also temperature. I feel like I get too cool, too cold. I hate the feeling of being cold too often. And my body temperature is pretty low. And that's another sign that I'm probably not getting enough nutrients. This is not to say that if you are not losing weight, what you need to do is eat more. I think what you really need to do is analyze really how much you're eating. But if you're not losing weight and you're looking at YouTube videos or you're talking to other people and they're eating a lot more than you are and they look great and feel great and are smaller than you, maybe, just maybe, it could be that you're eating too little, as crazy as that sounds. So we will see. I will keep you updated.